Hi everybody, welcome to part 2 of the do-it-yourself make a fillet knife out of a saw blade. In part 1, which I will put a link in the description below, my friends Rich and Brian take a nasty old saw blade that he found at a yard sale and they turn it into a very sharp, very flexible fillet knife. At the end of the video, Rich says he's going to pass that fillet knife off to me to make a wooden handle for it, which I've never made one before, but I'm sure I can, and I'm sure it'll turn out just fine. He also mentioned that he would like to see this finished knife go to a subscriber of the Hall and Ash channel. I agree with him. I will be thinking of a way of how to do that. I don't know when or how yet, but I'm sure I'll come up with something.
So Rich has handed off the knife blade to me to make the handle. And what I've chosen to make the handle out of is out of walnut, cherry, and ash. Typically I put ash in every project that I do. Last name is Ash, so it's just kind of fitting. What I've done so far is taken this 3 pieces of wood material and ran it through my table saw to get it down to a more manageable size. I still need to go through the planer and make it thinner because if you laminate these 3 pieces together, that is way too wide for one side of the handle. So I need to make up a jig to run these small pieces through my planer. And then once that's done, I will glue these 3 pieces together, times 2, because there's both sides of the knife handle. Then shape it to go just past the knuckle guard on the knife blade, epoxy it to the knife handle, and then put 2 brass screws into it. Of course, everything will be sanded smooth and made comfortable for your hand. So that's the first process. I'm going to get busy with that, and we'll be back with the second process after a bit.
First thing that I need to do is to make a little sled to put through the planer because these pieces are too small to go through the planer by themselves. So what I'm going to do is glue on this little backer piece onto this scrap piece of plywood and clamp it. It's going to have to set for 24 hours. And then after it's set for 24 hours, I'm going to put this through the planer. Now I'm gluing it because I don't want to use nails or screws because obviously if I did that, it would dull my planer knives. So the best way for me to do this is to glue and clamp some scrap material together and make what's called a sled. Just any kind of clamps, anything to get that together. And then what I will do is, I better get that excess glue out of there. And then what I will do is after it's set and ready to go, then these pieces will butt up like so, and I can feed them through the planer. And even if it planes off this little stop board, whatever you want to call it, I don't care. I just need to get these pieces for the handle down to, I'm going to guess maybe 1/8 of an inch each. So that's all that we're going to do for today. I'll get back at this project at least after 24 hours of cure time.
Okay, everything has sat in the clamps. Well, when I say everything, this backer board has sat in the clamps overnight. So I'm going to remove the clamps and then start feeding these handle pieces through the planer. Okay, I'm very pleased with how that worked through the planer, making that sled and getting these pieces as thin as I hope will be comfortable. I'll have some sanding to do once it's mounted onto the knife blade. So the glue up process, pretty simple. Just put some glue on that board. This happens to be the walnut one, which will go closest to the handle, followed by cherry and ash. Get a good spread of glue over the whole entire piece. And then just put one on top of the other. And since I made a mess and got glue on that, it's going to go this way. And then put it in the clamp. Just like that. Tighten it down. That's one side. And then we got to clamp the other side. Have to go in on an angle with this. So what I'll do to get the pressure on this side is I will use another clamp to take up that little bit of wood sticking out there that doesn't have a clamp on it, because we want equal pressure on the whole piece. So now I'm over on my bandsaw and I'm going to just begin cutting that outline out. Okay, I'm back from the bandsaw. I've got both pieces cut out. And actually, it got me thinking, do I want to show the walnut on the outside or the ash on the outside? At this point, I can do either. So if I do walnut on the outside, it'll look like this versus ash. I think I'm probably going to go with the walnut on the outside. I just kind of, in my mind, think that would look a little nicer. Okay, I've sanded the two handles, the front that meets the blade and the front where I can't reach later to do any sanding. I took that down to a bevel. So now I'm going to mix up the two-part epoxy. I've already squeezed a little bit out of this to make sure I can do it. Sometimes that stuff sets up. So you just mix up two-part epoxy, just like this. Get it mixed up good. And then put it on the handle. And what this is going to do is keep that handle, wood handle, fastened to the steel handle. Get that little piece of sawdust out of there. So it will hold it in place while you do, you get your brass pins put in place. So I've got the two-part epoxy on. And now I want to line it up with that duct tape that I put on earlier. And as you can see, everything fits real good.
So I'm going to mix up some more 2-part epoxy and do the other side. So, okay, I took the knife out of the clamps and now it's over to the sander. Okay, what I've done now is to make a line the full length of the handle, and not sure if it's going to show up. There it is. Made the full length of the handle, and then I put 2 spots where I'm going to drill the holes for the brass pins. Now, before I put this in the drill press, I'm going to rewrap this blade with duct tape again, and I'm also going to put a clamp on the drill press table so that if for some reason it would happen to catch, it's going to bump into that stop block instead of spinning all the way around and coming back to get me.
So I'm over to the drill press and I found this old jig that I use for drilling in hinges and such. And I thought this would be perfect for a safety stop for drilling these holes. So I'm going to go ahead and drill these 2 holes and put the pins in.
Okay, as you can see, I've got 2 holes bored now, and I have my 2 brass pins. These are actually 3/16 pins. I was looking for some 1/4 inch in the hardware store, but they don't have any. These are mainly decorative anyway. So the next step is to take some 2-part epoxy and epoxy those 2 brass pins, stick them in the holes, and sand them flush. And that's where we'll be when I turn the video back on. Where I left off, I now have the brass pins in, and I did a final sanding with 220 grit sandpaper. Now this is the part that I like. This is putting block oil on, and this will just make this wood pop. Look at how that just changed it. Just that quick. If you're a woodworker, I know that this is the part that you enjoy, probably next to the customer being satisfied, is making that wood pop.
From an old saw blade to a finished fillet knife. And I thought about what I'm going to do with this. I'm putting this back in Rich's hands, and Rich and I are going to go fishing with it, and we're going to fillet some fish. Then we'll decide how to give it away to a subscriber. So folks, I hope you've enjoyed watching this as much as I've enjoyed making this. And until the next time, thank you for watching.